The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God and welcome in. I want to start with MAHA, of course, the Make America Healthy Again movement. It went along so well with MAGA and was, in fact, a staple to RFK, Bobby Kennedy's independent presidential run in 2024. And if you remember what a critical allegiance he then made with Donald Trump, because if you go back to 2024, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and then RFK was a strong 10 to 15, 12 to 15% candidate that whatever side he eventually chose to partner with was going to win the election. So as it stands right now, if you look back, and you can thank him for this, had he chose Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, that team, that side, there is no way Donald Trump is president. There'd be an agreement on that. But it came with some certain promises, and it was going to make America healthy again. Bobby Kennedy had already had a long-standing career in our pesticides. We know that they're putting Roundup on our food, and our farmers are getting cancer. We're having carcinogenic from there. We're also having an endocrinology disturbance as well from this. So he's been suing environmentally and been getting, recompense for those that have been harmed by these dangerous pesticides. So part of that was the pesticide. The other elements included the schedule, the COVID-19, mRNA, the panic during COVID, the expansion of the childhood vaccine schedule. All that stuff needed to be looked at again. And Bobby Kennedy got right to work at that. And they had this sort of dream team put together that there was just going to be the right FDA, the right CDC. All the players were going to be in line. They understood part of that mission when we sent Donald Trump back a second time. Again, a three-time Trump voter. So please make no mistake that we still hold those to account, even though we really like him as people, even though he was a really fun candidate. We still have to hold those to account. So three-time Trump voter. And we're looking at the MAHA movement. The other thing was, in addition to vaccines, pesticides, water, air quality, all the poisons that are coming at us, we had to look at the foods. And of course, we've got red dyes, we've got food dyes. Red number 40, of course, is a neurotoxin. So we have a lot of behavioral related, autistic related, attention deficit related. This is all coming from the poisonous foods that our FDA, our CDC, our government watching our back has allowed to come into our food system and completely wreck America's health. It's not close. We're the sickest country. It's not close. We're the most obese country. We're the most indulgent country. Just look at the size of Americans right now. And that's not an indictment. This has a lot to do with those that were tasked with protecting our health, CDC, HHS, all these people. They abandoned ship on us and let the food come in, whatever's going to be most addictive, profitable, easy to get to. It comes in these nice packages. It lasts forever. All of these things. We just took the comfort of this food, this easy food, and it just crept its way and it's taken over America. The food right now in America is one of the biggest causes of the health problems in America. Obesity, blood pressure, cholesterol. Of course, we have to talk about the poisonous medicines that they then give you to take for what your diet has caused you to react to, the symptoms you're now having, the impact this is having on you. It's not about the American people doing that. It's about the elected officials. And I guess in many cases they're not, but the people that we did elect, they were supposed to be watching this and supervising this. And they gave just the worst kind of leash to the wrong people. Dr. Fauci is a great example. Coach Tulsi Gabbard just released the dangerous, very dangerous email change, the communication, the cover up was on. Dr. Fauci needed this to be a natural origin, a bat at the Wuhan market in China, even though the Wuhan Institute of Virology was in the same town. It couldn't have been that. It had to be, in fact, from the bat. They've never found COVID isolated in the wild. And so we now know it's clear that was a lie. That was a cover up. And so there's nothing being done about that. But the same thing happened when they said, hey, this food won't hurt your child. This red food dye isn't going to cause behavioral disorders that are then going to put them on lifelong ADD medication and all these terrible things that we do to our kids when they're reacting to the foods that they've poisoned us with. I think we have to understand that this is not real food. This is science experiments packaged wonderfully, addictively, and voila, here we go. On your way to work, on your way to the soccer game. Let's get this. We'll take it to the movie. Whatever it is they're doing, they've got us so hooked on the food. We're going to need a major overhaul and a diligent worker in Washington to unwind this and then make sure it never happens again. We need European labels. We need food labels that look a lot like Europe's, where there's half the ingredients. They don't have food dyes. They don't have pesticides. That stuff's illegal in Europe, but it's perfectly fine in America. That's shameful. So that must be held to account. So we're speaking MAHA, though. Is it going our way? Are we winning? Are we getting anywhere in the Make America Healthy Again? Because when you get America healthy again, guess who pays? Big Pharma. And we begin to unwind those big, monstrous claws that they've got in government. They've got in Washington, D.C. They're the biggest lobbyist out there. So when we're healthy, we're good. We don't need your medicine. But thank you so much. Be on the standby, though, because we do want it for that life-saving moment, because there are good medicines out there. Not everything is poison. Not everything is the worst. And I can tell you with what they can do with surgeries and stuff, there is a wonderful, beautiful aspect of good medicine being done in America. But we also have those that are willing to take money over doing the right thing for a child, doing the right thing for American families, knowing that there's a health epidemic and really doing nothing about it. That's shameful. That's not honorable. And so we need honorable men running government with this sole mission: what's best for the people. What's best for the American people is not red food dye, is not pesticides, okay, is not over vaccination. We went in 1986, of course, Ronald Reagan signed the Immunity Act that gave no liability, no ability to sue the manufacturers of vaccines. They threatened Ronald Reagan and the government and said, if you don't give us this, we will stop making vaccines. And government said, no problem at all. We'll take care of it. We'll deal with the risk. We'll give fractions on the dollar if you do hurt somebody to the victim many years from now. It's a shameful process, but we've ballooned up to 72 childhood vaccines. Of course, if you're over the age of 40, you didn't have 72. I mean, even if you take a flu shot your entire life, you don't have as much as these kids do by the time they're 18, 50 by the time they're 2, 24 in that first year. These are big numbers. It used to be 4, used to be 2, used to be 6. And then that immunity came in and the schedule exploded. So part of the mission was to look at that schedule and to make sure, do we really need every child born on a hepatitis B vaccine? Because hepatitis B vaccine, of course, is preventing from intravenous drug use, okay, sharing needles, okay, it's passed that way, and then promiscuity, unsafe sex, maybe prostitution, these kind of things. In fact, that's how that vaccine was initially developed. It was developed for drug dealers, drug users, and prostitutes, so that this would somehow, don't change your life, just take this vaccine and this will preserve your career in this, sort of street life that you're doing. Well, it turns out that drug dealers and prostitutes, they don't view themselves, they don't care about the future. They're not worried about that. If they die today, tomorrow, look at what they're doing for profession. So because they had nothing to do with a vaccine that they had put tremendous money, remember, all these are buku dollars going behind each vaccine, get that baby approved and on the schedule, and it's a gold mine from now until the end of the world. But so what did they do? How are we going to get rid of this hepatitis B vaccine? They started giving it to newborns within the first hour of life. And so, 99% of babies born, maybe 97% of babies born are not born into that immediate environment in which they can clearly tell you that the mother's infected and that behavior will be involved. The child will go right home to a drug consuming prostitution house. I mean, that's a very small population in America. And I understand that we do have that conduct and we do want protection for that child. Okay. That's probably more a case where you would pull that child out of the home because we have a mother in prostitution, we have drug use going on, you're not fit to handle a child. So let's probably look at it that way. But nevertheless, that doesn't apply to 9 out of 10 babies, but they give it to them anyways. And of course, then we've had this rise in autism. Okay. Again, they'll tell you, the skeptics that say, no, vaccines have never hurt one person ever, this whole thing is crazy. And there are those that advocate that way. They will tell you that there is only better ways of diagnosing autism today, but there's been no change because 1 in 10,000 in 1980, there was a case of autism, 1 in 10,000. Today, conservatively, 1 in 27 births, autism. Okay, you don't just get there out of some kind of misdiagnoses. Okay, there was an explosion of cases, and there was an explosion of vaccine consumption, and then there's been an explosion of nobody's handling this, nobody's investigating this. Even if you say, okay, fine, we're willing to look at the vaccines, shouldn't you want to know what's going on? How are our children being this neurologically damaged so early in life? What's going on? Shouldn't we find that out as a country, as a health committee, as a health institution? You'd think they would. But I think if they really did their due diligence and really investigated this thing right down to the final piece of evidence, the final piece of data, we would find that vaccines have a huge role in our autism rates, our behavioral, our neurological disorders, our attention disorders. Vaccines are no doubt playing a role in that. How much? We're going to find out. We should be finding that out. And that's why Bobby Kennedy wanted the placebo-based tests. He wanted years of evidence-based study before we put that on a schedule. Remember, COVID-19 went through the system under an emergency granted access in which it didn't need any proper testing. It needed nothing. They just got it out there on the market. And in December of 2020, they started to roll out the COVID vaccine shot. And what we're talking about with COVID vaccine was they jumped the line, they skipped the rules, and they put something at mass scale in an experiment form still into so many people. And Bobby Kennedy knew that that could never happen again in America. And so part of MAHA was to look at vaccines, the medicines, the pesticides, the food sources, what we're putting in our food. Those all had to be addressed. And then, of course, we have to get back to what does a healthy diet in America look like? How do we make it to where people are not having to have so much confusion about what's good and bad for them? Why can't we just make straightforward labels that have real ingredients in them that are nutritious by design? Why can't we get back to that? Why does it all have to be for-profit food and have to be so bad for you? We should be asking those questions, and we were. And so MAHA, for a lot of voters with President Trump in 2024, that was big on their heart. MAHA, they felt really strong about that. And Bobby Kennedy was given the perfect role to begin to implement the ideology that needed to change in America, which was we have to be healthier than we are. We have too much in insurance, too much in medicines, too much dependency on big pharma, too much dependency on medication to sustain us. That can't be the case. And of course, you know, when you ask yourself how much of this is lifestyle, how much of this is genetic, how much of this is, I mean, we should be asking ourselves, I'm depressed. What are you eating? I think start there, right? I mean, it's not a criticism. It's a easy one to look at. And if I'm having too much sugar, too much processed food, I'm not having any meat, veggies, I'm having no balance. That could be a great place to start. Am I exercising? Am I going outside? Am I spiritually well? Am I connecting with the Father? Am I in community with? There are so many things that we can be doing prior to now. What do I have to do? I take this pill every day for the rest of my life, and I won't be depressed. We can do better. And so we've been saying that, and we got MAHA going. But MAHA didn't really take off like we thought. Much of the president's agenda has not gone well so far. And of course, we're not just here to rip President Trump. We realize he closed the border, and we're grateful he closed the border. We don't have any deportations, less than 300,000 deportations since he took office. That's not going to cut it. 20 million came in. Those people are already having children here in America. So that 20 million that came in, maybe it's 25. How long before it's 50? When you let 20 million in, flash forward 10 years, they have 10 kids. You know, when I guess the kids that they're having now are teenagers and in their 20s, you're going to get to 50 million brand new people really quickly. And we didn't have room for it. It's not, we love our neighbors. We love the nations. And of course, we want to go to the nations with the good news that Christ preached. But as far as just coming in and setting up shop here, we had a housing crisis. We had an inflation crisis. We had a crime crisis. We had so many things going on in America. The last thing we could do was welcome in strangers, of which probably 7 out of 10 you wouldn't let in your home. Let's be honest. You wouldn't hire. You wouldn't want your kids playing with. I mean, these are not the best that were coming. We were getting everything. And I'm sure we got some wonderful, absolutely wonderful illegal immigrants during this process. That's unfortunately, though, even they would have to go in this case because we were way past capacity. The fire marshal came by and said, you guys are way over. I'm going to shut this place down. And so that's what President Trump did. He did shut the border. That is true. We need more deportations. We asked for Epstein. Not getting that. We asked for no new wars. We're hopefully ending the current war. But then, of course, we still had a lot of outrage over COVID and what had gone on since we kind of began to see what happens with big pharma, big ag, government collusion. We see Dr. Fauci's making millions of dollars on royalties on big pharma drugs that he's approving, overseeing, repping, promoting. I mean, we saw the corruption. We saw a lot during COVID, and we're grateful for it. It revealed a lot of the trans stuff, a lot of the brainwashing of our kids that this person can become an other sex by doing these, and that's totally normal. And they wanted to read really filthy books to our children at schools. And so that COVID era shone so much light on so much filth. And now what do we do with it? Well, we reelected Donald Trump in MAHA mission, and it went in there. Okay. And the reason we're talking about this is that two things are happening right now with the movement that are working against the MAHA movement. And I think we should go and look at what's going to happen in the fall with the flu vaccine. Now, for the first time ever, and the FDA just approved this June 18th, 9-0, Moderna's flu vaccine, mRNA Flusiva. It's mFlusiva. Okay, that's going to be the name of the thing. It should be ready to hit the shelves this fall. It's mRNA. Now, remember, with mRNA and COVID, that's when that really came to the center stage. And what they called it was messenger RNA. And this was supposed to be this technology where they could very easily identify the virus and the new strains of the virus. And then, of course, they could quickly make a vaccine instead of 6 months, 2 months. And this is all for our best interest, right? But we saw that that's a technology that's not ready. They're also not using messenger RNA. This is called modified RNA. Okay. So this is a synthetic thing that is trying to work its way into the DNA, and it's going to cause disruption. How do we know that? We have COVID-19 shots that prove it. Okay. The CDC's own literature will tell you very clearly. Please look this up. It's very important that you start looking at this stuff and say, wow, the conspiracy theorists did it again, because what does their literature say? COVID-19 shots may cause myocarditis in teen boys. That is, you must give that piece of discretion to that demographic. Okay. The CDC said it. Now, here's our problem with now an mRNA flu vaccine is that the COVID vaccine was advertised as safe and effective. Okay. So let's look at what does it mean? Safe and effective. Well, safe to me tells me I take it and I won't have any side effects that would ever threaten my life, my day, my next breath, right? That to me is safe. Effective means it blocks transmission. When it comes to vaccines, an effective one blocks transmission. Now, that was the selling. That was what we had to have at the time. COVID-19 was scaring us all. But don't worry, Big Pharma, who's going to make a fortune on this, is on the way. All the best scientists, they're working weekends to get you a safe and effective vaccine by Christmas. And son of a gun, they did it. COVID made its name November 2019, came to the US in full-fledged March 2020. And during all that time, they were able to make, call it a year, a safe and effective vaccine. They called it that. Now, here's the problem. We know it's not safe because it can give the teen boys myocarditis. We know it's not effective because the CDC also confirms in literature, in writing, for the record, that it does not prevent transmission. So, and if you remember, the unvaccinated were always challenged, always pointed out, there you go, there's a super spreader, they won't take a vaccine. And as it turns out, even those vaccine takers, they weren't helping anybody in the first place either, because it's now confirmed that the COVID-19 shot did not stop transmission, meaning you could go take 6 or 7 or 8 of these things in that first year like they recommended, and you had no more protection than the unvaccinated. Okay. Now, we made the biggest deal in the world over that, but the two things it was sold on were both failed. They were both lies. They were not true, was not safe, was not effective. So the flu vaccine, which is also rarely effective. Did you know the flu vaccine is only 30% of, that's its top of the mark, 30% effective. It's a guess at a future flu strain that they kind of shotgun and hope they do it, but it's only 30% correct. And so you already have a coin flip, less than a coin flip's chance of it working for you in your case. But now they're going to introduce mRNA to it, which has just come from a a very good testing in COVID, that it was not safe and effective. So they voted 9-0 to move forward with that. And that's just a concern because it's a slap in the face. You know, Trump, during the 2024 campaign, he stopped talking about COVID-19 shots. He was actually getting booed when he would speak about those at a rally, and he stopped doing it. He stopped speaking on COVID-19 shots. His base, this was very big in their heart. MAHA meant a lot to them. The conduct of the Democrats, and quite frankly, Trump's Congress during COVID, it hurt a lot of small businesses, hurt a lot of families, hurt a lot of people physically from taking the vaccine. And then we were never like apologized to. There was never anything done for this stuff. I mean, there was damage done to the economy, damage done to the individual, and no shame. No, not even the slightest regard for those that maybe were really wiped out by COVID. There's been nothing done for that. Now, we've tried to do that more for the January 6 folks who were also probably to some degree harmed like that. They were walking around the grounds and they were swooped up as a part of the 700 arrested for January 6th. And so we want to make them whole and we want to do all that. But COVID was a monster. COVID was a beast. And a part of it was this COVID-19 shot that now they want to take the same branding tech, because at this point in time, nobody's taking COVID-19 shots. And this isn't an insult, but there's no point. There's no need. There wasn't a need back then. It didn't work back then. It doesn't work today. And then, of course, you don't need to worry about it because COVID isn't in the culture anymore. I mean, I never hear from people having COVID anymore, unless they were vaccinated, because, of course, then they do have a higher chance of infection, is what we found, because you're putting spike protein in the body, which is the toxic element of the shot, of the virus, and that stays in you. It didn't go out of you. I mean, they just lied about so much of it, and nothing's being done about it. But now they're slapping in the face of MAHA by now putting this mRNA to the flu vaccine. So that's all happening right now, and that's a problem right now because MAHA there's very little time for Trump, because see, once you don't maintain control in the fall, you know, we're assuming as it stands right now, we're going to lose the House. Unfortunately, this did not go well. It's already razor thin margins. And then, of course, we played games with Epstein. We played games with Iran. It's only more expensive today than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, so it's not going well for the agenda. MAHA kind of could run its own path, its separate course. It's running into dead ends. It's not happening. And some of these changes were not even going in until 27, 28. So by then, we have a change of power in Washington. We may have an escalated war. I think that's the next area to speak on. This kind of consensus thinking that the Iran war is somehow settled. Of course, just this last week, we had tensions rise. Did you know only right now 5 commercial ships are getting through on a daily basis? Its average pre-February 28th was 93, approximately 93 ships a day. And so it's not getting off the ground. We're supposed to start moving this. Iran is supposed to start selling legal oil. Doing business with the world. That's supposed to all take place. And then it was supposed to be safe passage. Right now, there's an 8x premium insurance charge for those insuring these boats, these vessels making their way through the strait. It's that dangerous. It's that hostile. And so they're paying 8x premiums right now. That's not sustainable. Okay, so it's not going to work. But again, this deal is probably 10 days in, and it's off to a very shaky start because, of course, we still have tension in Lebanon. Now, there was an agreement. Now, here's where this is going to get really super messy, super hairy. And it's just like you might have to just leave and you'll have to figure it out yourselves. We're sorry we even got involved, please. But don't send us a bill. We're done with this stuff. We're out for good in the Middle East. That has to be if there's any messaging to take, if there's any hope to take from this, is that this is the absolute last intervention in the Middle East forever. You can't even pretend to have an ear for the Middle East. If it's going on in the Middle East, you can't hear it. Why? It doesn't have anything to do with us. All we need to do with the Middle East is just make good business around oil. Okay, and that free flows, that's good for the world. You do your thing, we're going to do ours. We don't conflict manage in the Middle East. We don't need the Middle Eastern money coming into the US, buying off politicians like they clearly are doing. We don't need any of that anymore. We need to be America only, until further notice, right? So we don't have that. So we have then, though, the Lebanese government making a peace agreement in the United States with Israel, a trilateral. But the problem is Hezbollah says they have no right to speak for us, the Lebanese government. You know, the Lebanese government has done its people no service. This was not good governance. They are a cowardly government. And Hezbollah has a lot of support in Lebanon. And so it's going to be a lot of tension. But Hezbollah says Lebanon cannot speak for us. And Israel says we will not stop pursuing our interests in Lebanon. Iran is saying there can be no conflict in Lebanon. And the U.S. is saying no nuclear, no ballistic, Strait of Hormuz open, and we'll put you in the game. All those have to line up perfectly. They all have to be to the satisfaction of all the parties involved. And it seems like with that many players, there's no way to get that on consensus. So this ends badly, or we walk away. What were we thinking? So sorry about that. Please don't call. That has to be our next move. Has to be our next move. And it'll look cowardly. It'll look shameful. It'll look wasteful. But this only gets worse. The idea that Israel backs off, Hezbollah backs off, Iran, of course, they just targeted a ship in the Strait, a Thailand or Singapore ship that they says was labeled, but they popped it with a missile, with a projectile. And so you just have something that's on fragile ice. And of course, you know, when you get into something that you had no business in the first place, it can be tough to get out. But this is a place and a time for humility for the president, for the United States, to just say, and let all these haters, you know, because all this movement towards a peace deal with Iran, it has made a lot of people upset here in America. The war hawks, the neocon, the globalist, the Zionist, they're very upset that you're meaning Iran's just going to be to this and now we're done. They wanted them flattened. They wanted them taken out, wiped out. And the president saying we're done now. And, you know, I think if he was honest with himself and the American people, he would say this was a mistake. I mean, clearly, there's no proof that you can keep them from getting a nuclear weapon at any time or charging the tolls. I mean, this still has to be, did we build more goodwill with Iran doing this or less? Did we hurt the relationship? I mean, I think we obviously know the answer that if they were chanting death to America before this, what do you think they think about us now? But we didn't take them out. They're still going, and they're going to thrive now that they can sell legal oil around the world. So now you have a country, if you really are scared of them, that will have more money and resources than ever before. They'll have more resiliency than ever before. We just backed the United States off and kicked them out of the Middle East and put Israel in check. So they're emboldened, they're empowered. I just don't see where the win is there. So it's humility. It's humility. And, I hate when we do things like that. I hate when we get involved in conflicts that we had no business getting involved with at all in the first place. Hello, Iraq, Afghanistan. Hello, Vietnam. Hello, all these things that have caused tremendous suffering and expense, pain and suffering in the loss of our service members, and then our PTSD service members that they come back a wreck and we don't take care of them. We shamefully let them be homeless and have no resources. That has to be sort of a built-in retirement. You did your time. You can't ever let a veteran be on the streets. Okay. I understand he's addicted. I understand he's making bad choices. Okay. But you put him in a war, you messed up his head, and the biggest catch should have never been there in the first place. So we owe that out of the gate. If they reject help, of course, that's a different story, but you have your hand out ready to pick that soldier up, and then never repeat what you did to those Vietnam boys, never what you did in Afghanistan, and then the withdrawal. I mean, hell, we had to go lose 13 people just on the way out of Afghanistan. I mean, just what a blubbering, foolish mess that whole thing was. And it cost a lot of lives, a tremendous amount of inflation. And we didn't learn. We did it again. We did something much more intense, though, with Iran. Iran, 92 million people, a sophisticated military, a rich old civilization, and one that has proven resilient. I mean, they've had sanctions forever, and they've had hostilities with the U.S. and Israel forever, and they're still up and running. They're still ticking. And now they kind of get a new standing in the world. You can do business with Iran, no problem at all. And nobody's going to look at you funny. Nobody's going to ask any questions. They are straight up legit in the oil game. Now, Israel has no natural resources at all. Do you think that encourages the BB government or discourages? Well, it discourages them. And that's why they know they have to keep pursuing Lebanon. And again, Lebanon, a weak country, it's been overrun by Muslims and Hezbollah and terrorists, and we understand that. We're not disputing that. And we acknowledge that Hezbollah doesn't like Israel, and Israel doesn't like Hezbollah. And there's probably like tribes all over Africa, same kind of thing. It just, we have nothing to do with that, though. You understand? And I think that's what J.D. Vance was speaking to, of course, when he piped back at Israeli officials and those criticizing the U.S. and President Trump, suggesting he didn't go harsh enough on Iran, that this is a shameful agreement and this is a backstab to Israel. And he checked them and he said, you know, we're the only ones, we're your only friend in the world. Did you know that Israel has no other ally in the whole world? Nobody likes them. We chose to partner with them, and it's cost us a lot of relationships, of course. And that's not, you know, these are two separate countries with two totally different destinies and paths and agendas and priorities. Totally get it. And that's why you don't lock arms. And you notice that doesn't go on anywhere else in the world, certainly with the U.S. involved, where you have this this kind of incestuous relationship, just this really kind of perverted relationship. No other country has that. And you can see why this is now bubbling up to the surface of the culture. Because, of course, this was a hidden topic. This was a shameful topic. Who are you to say something bad about a Jewish person? Don't you remember the Holocaust? Who are you to criticize the Israeli government? Look at the persecution. You couldn't say anything. It didn't matter the conduct. And I think that game is so far and over. We've seen behind the curtain. We're now just asking ourselves, okay, who else needs to see this? Who else needs to wake up in America, in Washington, D.C., and say, we have to be done with this. We can't be influenced by another nation at the demise of our own people. And that's what it's been so many times. Iraq wars, and of course this one. We don't get into 9/11 enough, and that has to be another topic that we get deep into. And I want people to really research a couple of things. Larry Silverstein, okay, so of course he was the owner of the Twin Towers. He bought the leases of the Twin Towers, also owned Building 7. I think people need to really know who he is. You need to look at the ambitions of Bibi Netanyahu and sort of the forecasting of what he said would happen to America in 1995. He said this will happen to America if they don't wake up and see how dangerous these radical terrorists are. Maybe one of them will take out the Twin Towers. And of course, in 2001, they did. We don't ever ask ourselves, how could 3 buildings with just 2 planes all fall down like that? Like perfect like that, without controlled demolition, without explosives lining the middle. How could that possibly happen? Those kind of questions were not asked in 2001. And what did we get? An immediate war in the Middle East, the Patriot Act, a major change in the culture, society from that point forward. 9/11 did that. They gave us TSA. It gave us DHS. Remember, these were institutions, government institutions that did not exist prior to 2001, prior to 9/11. And then we got those. We got the Patriot Act. Of course, that's with all the FISA talk that we can spy on you without a warrant. And we might capture a lot of American dialogue, conversations, communications. But if it's somehow attached to us protecting you from these global terrorists, there's nothing wrong there. And of course, Donald Trump, who wanted FISA, but claimed FISA, this was all the Russia stuff with the illegal spying on his campaign. You remember, this was all a part of Patriot Act and then the FISA within it. And what did we get there? Well, a clear FBI intent to frame Donald Trump as some kind of Russian agent that was colluding, and they were going to bust him. And that we saw that nothing happened to those people. Either got fired. The gross couple that was having the affair, Peter Schiff and his fling, you know, they lost their jobs, but you know, they didn't go to jail for that. But you know, we wasted, how much money did we waste on this fake Steele dossier, Russia gate, Trump with the strippers, all that stuff? How much resources of the United States were wasted on a complete lie? And nothing ever happens, though, remember. That's why we get so disappointed, so discouraged. It's like, okay, well, there was a crime. oh, but it was a famous person or it was deep state, associated, we can't prosecute, we can't hold to account, we can't show to the American people, doesn't matter how high you've reached in government, if you corrupt us, if you steal, lie, deceive the American people, you're gone. And then, here's the price for those kind of offenses. And we don't do that in America. So we haven't gone back and checked 9/11. We haven't gone back and looked at the facts. None of it makes sense. None of it's going to fly. It's as preposterous as the 2020 election. It's as preposterous as the COVID-19 shot being safe and effective. And of course, now we know those things were not true. But we need to know those in real time, lifetime, so that we're addressing those things as they happen. Okay, as we begin to get new information on 9/11 in the days following. And we have more cell phones today. We have more social media today. We have cameras all over the place today. They couldn't pull 9/11 off today, period. And that's why you see it's getting harder and harder. The Charlie Kirk case is a great example. This they could have done in the 60s, like they did with JFK, MLK, the moon landings. They could get away with that stuff in the 60s. Can't do it today. You can see how quickly, within seconds, people said what the government is telling us about Charlie Kirk is not true, that there is no way a 30-06. Remember, folks, we've seen the images thousands of times. This move up and over. This and over. This is an exit wound, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it's coming from his mic, and it's a shrapnel. It's an explosive. Whether it was supposed to explode his chest or blow his head off, we don't know. The device came from here through his neck, went out. Okay. What the government is telling us is it came from here, that this is an entrance wound, and that his neck bone stopped the bullet from going back. And that was what they thought we were going to go for, just right out of the gate. Tell him this. Charlie was such an epic man that they're going to be in so much grief. They're not going to question this. And so many people are turned off by the trans stuff. So we'll do it like this. We'll do a bitter, resentful, trans, homosexual kid, Tyler Robinson. He is going to defend all those that Charlie Kirk has offended with. A man cannot become a girl cannot become a boy. He was going to avenge his girlfriend, his trans lover, by making one of the most public executions in the history of this country. I don't know, Abe Lincoln, JFK, Lenin, Charlie Kirk. I mean, pretty rare territory to do something that bold and brazen in front of so many to see. But of course, they described Tyler Robinson as going up the roof in one outfit. He's got his grandfather's 30-06. He assembles it on the roof. He takes the shot. He disassembles the shotgun. He comes down, changes clothes. He gets out of camera sight. Okay. He's later seen at a Dairy Queen getting a blizzard, wearing the original clothing again. Governor Spencer Cox tells us that, yes, he changed from the change of clothes back into the original clothes, that he did reassemble and then disassemble the shotgun out in the rifle, the 30-aught, out in the woods. They found that. The government is going to have to explain how the messages that Tyler Robinson was confessing to the murders via Discord. They are saying, the defense is saying he was in jail at the time, in custody at the time, which you say he wrote those messages. How are we going to square that up? You've got to square up the bullet. You've got to square up the very strange behavior. And this is really disturbing behavior. If you look at the isolated shots of the security team that day, and they're doing the messages, they're doing the code, they're doing the synchronized, they're doing the strange exits after the shooting. You're looking at Mikey McCoy. You're looking at these people. Is that the way you'd respond if the leader of your company, leader of your movement was just, assassinated? Would you really get on the phone and walk away? Would you grab this piece of equipment and hightail it? Would you drag it? Why would you not have paramedics on site for something like that? And of course, they drug him into the Tahoe. Very little blood. Of course, the bullet they're saying is lodged in his neck at this time. The doctor doing the autopsy that we never really got to see said, yeah, these are these are Superman bones, is what they're describing. This is going to be incredible because, if you remember the O.J. Simpson case, we had the bloody glove, we had the fingerprints, we had the knife cut on O.J.'s hand, we had the history of abuse. We had this jealous rage that he would get into. I mean, we had the history, it all lined up. O.J. Simpson was guilty. He killed both those people that night. And then, of course, you had the games they started playing with the jury. And so in that case, a very guilty man it was obvious. The only thing that they could say in O.J. Simpson's case was that Mark Furman and these racist cops planted all the evidence. He would never touch a fly. And then, of course, Black jurors on that jury said it was a little slap back at the white man. They had no problem saying that. That's well documented. So it was getting back at Whitey, of course, and whether there's justification or for that or not. But the point is this: it's almost the direct inverse with Tyler Robinson, in which there is so much exculpatory evidence for Tyler Robinson. If the fix wasn't on, this case wouldn't even still continue. I mean, when there's a traffic accident and we've got two parties that have hit each other, we've got some skid, we've got some this, a reconstructionist on that accident can give you the pretty close to the speed they were traveling. Who hit who first? When did they hit the brakes after contact? They can begin to piece together that pretty good investigations in dealing with, how fast was the car traveling when it impacted the street, and they can get you pretty good. This is what happened in the accident, and that is going to be not possible in the explanation of how Charlie Kirk, a 30-06, did that, yet his body did this. It's just impossible, right? You're not going to be able to prove that case. And so what's going to happen when you have a framed man walk free? How do you do that? How do you reconcile that? Because there's not been one other piece of evidence or suspect or theories or motives even looked at in this case. It was closed. And remember, Kash Patel, 33 hours into the investigation, they caught him. 33 hours. He kept saying that. So what happens when he walks free and they can't prove this crazy case? Then what? Okay. So we have to then go deeper. And if we go deeper, we're going to see very clearly other players, other people, other countries that had motivation to silence Charlie Kirk. So unlike 9/11, where we let way too many years go by, and we still have classified documents for 9/11. Trump said he would release those too. He has not. And there's pages in there that will tell you exactly that our intelligence knew, and that there was other countries involved in this, and that it could have been prevented, and that it was done with multiple players to bring this all together, including Larry Silverstein, who owned the building, who had access. They could line the buildings with explosives. That's the only way they can fall down like that, right? And I just, of course, I was too young. I wasn't involved in anything like this in 2001, but I could just imagine like the doctors and the scientists now that debate COVID-19 vaccines, where you have so many doctors that say it's great and effective, and so many doctors that say, no, it's hurting people. And I would imagine it's the same thing, the engineers, the architects back then saying, there's no way a building can fall down like that. I've been doing this for 40 years. It's not possible. It's steel. Can't do it. And then they'll have other ones that say, no, this theory, this can happen. Of course, steel needs to be 1800 degrees to melt. And, so we didn't ask the questions. We are asking the questions about Charlie Kirk, though, right now, and Epstein right now. And so these things must be addressed right now. It's slipping away from any remnant of getting America back on track. America first, America only. We're missing the boat. We're not getting anything. MAHA slipping away, Epstein justice slipping away. At some point, we'll have to demand something get accomplished for the American people. As it stands right now, the goose egg, it's a zero. Name me the accomplishment. And you can't say big, beautiful bill. That was not an accomplishment. You could say close the border, but the law says the border is supposed to be closed anyway. So we thank you for upholding the law, But that was the expectation, at the beginning. So we need the victory. If you're MAGA, if you're a conservative, if you're for America, if you say, gosh, I think it'd be so awesome if America survived. But we do need action from government right now to go get some of these things done before it's too late, because November could flip power. We know 2028 is going to be a major problem for Republicans. You have no idea how expensive the world could be by then, how much damage could be inflicted by then. And so there's no promise to get to do this beyond Trump 2028. This is it. So you must have control in November and start getting these things done. They're still going hard for the SAVE Act, which of course we need the best elections in the world. And you have to be a citizen of this country to vote. That's just the way it works. I'm so sorry. You're not even supposed to be here, but of course we can't let you vote. Give me a break. You're crazy. And we're not saying that to enough people. So you can tell Republicans, they have no interest. Democrats, of course, they have no interest. And so we're not going to get safe and fair and election integrity in America anytime soon. We're not going to get this justice in Epstein that we hope for. It's not going to happen. The cover-up is on. Although I will say this, and this is how you're going to see if there's a redemption story behind Epstein's pursuit here, because this is an easy one. This is low-hanging fruit. Here's 3 million pages. Just go get us one co-conspirator. How about that? Just one. And I bet you with all those documents, you can get more than that. But a judge has ordered Todd Blanche to unredact a big, huge chunk of currently redacted things. This is part of a lawsuit by a journalist that says, using the Epstein Transparency Act, that was, of course, Thomas Massey, that says Congress prescribes that you must release all these, you must unredact all these, and you must explain why you did certain things in here. Okay. That judge told Todd Blanche, you must do this. He gave him till 1 p.m. last week. He did not respond. So right now, we already talked about this last week, though, on the show. Todd Blanche is breaking federal law. He has had a district judge say, you simply must do this now. You're in violation of the law. He's yet to respond. The judge will have the next move, I'm assuming, Monday and on this week. But you can see this is that moment, because if the Trump White House is able to bury the Epsteins to where they know, we know you're in there. We know you have them. And there's nothing we can do about it, though. We're not giving you any more files. Then you can kiss it goodbye as far as November. Are we going to be on track to gain power on the right? Forget it. You're going to get Democrats again. You're going to get men and women's locker rooms again. You're going to get an open border again. You're going to get LGBTQ shoved down your throat again, and you'll have nobody to blame but Donald Trump. Why? He switched teams. About a year into the game. And it was a 4-year game, and he was supposed to stay on it the whole time. And of course, he didn't. And now we pay the price. So we have a hot week coming. I believe we absolutely get movement. Remember, Iran, in the U.S.'s mind, has breached the peace agreement and done a foolish thing. We've hit them. It's on razor thin. Lebanon and Israel, not going anywhere. Big week. Do this. Serve the Lord Jesus Christ. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.